Welcome to another video. I am the Starman and this is a special video where I'm going to be looking at cameras. Look at all these cameras here, camera gear. I want to talk about in this video about the camera system that I use and why I'm thinking of moving to another system. And by the way, happy 2023. It's now Saturday, we're about a week into the new year and the weather is rubbish. So it's not been very good for Astro. So I'm going to be doing some videos indoors while the weather's not very good. So anyway, I'm going to get on with it and I'm going to show you this camera here first because this is my main camera that I've been using for about the last 4 years. It's a Nikon D850 and I've progressed through these cameras throughout. Since I started buying them back in 1988 was the first time I bought a Nikon camera and I stuck with the brand all this time. And that started with a film camera. It was an F801 that I started with and eventually ended up with this. Now I've had this for about 4 years and it is a cracking camera. And look at that there, 46 megapixels. It's got an articulating screen at the back, which the last camera had, which was the earlier version of this one, didn't have an articulating screen. Can you see how the screen comes out? So that makes it much easier if you're pointing the camera up quite a lot. You can pull that out and you can look up. And you can even hold the camera up and move that down so you can see over a crowd or something like that. So that works quite well in that way. But it is quite a heavy camera and I'm getting a bit older now actually. So I've sort of been thinking about getting a mirrorless camera system, a mirrorless, because this is actually a DSLR, a digital SLR. So it actually has a mirror. If I take the lens off, can you see how it has a mirror there? So when you take the picture, the mirror has to flip up. So when you look through the optical, it's an optical viewfinder, you're looking actually through, you're looking down the mirror and into the lens. And mirrorless cameras actually work a different way. They do not have the mirror. You're actually looking at an image formed by the sensor. So you're not strictly looking through the lens in the same way as you are on this. It's what's known as an EVF or an electronic viewfinder. So it's very different to an optical, but all cameras now, I think the DSLRs like this one are being phased out now, to be honest. So what I want to do is I want to move to a new system and possibly even a new brand. So I might be moving to a new brand. I'm going to tell you why I'm thinking of moving to a new brand. Now, so that's my camera there, that's what I use there. Now I've seriously been thinking about moving to Sony mirrorless. Now someone I know, someone that was a client on one of my workshops, a lady that was a client on one of my workshops was very, very kind enough to lend me her Sony camera. This is an A7R Mark III. Look at that there. It's quite a lot smaller. I'll show you with my camera. Just look at the size of this. It's got an articulating screen. Can you see? The same sort of thing as mine. So you can point it up and hold it over crowds and that sort of thing. But just look, can you see the size of that? Now the lens is a little bit different. It's got the similar sort of lens to mine. It's a 24-70, but this is an f4. So it's a little bit smaller. The aperture inside this lens is a bit smaller than on this one. This is an f2.8. But if I show you them together, I did do this on a live stream, but it's a bit difficult on a live stream. The quality is not very good. But can you see? There's the camera I'm using now underneath, and this is a Sony on top. And essentially, it does the same thing. It does exactly the same thing. The only main difference is that the lens on the Sony is a bit slower. It's one stop slower. It's an f4 lens compared to an f2.8 lens. And what a difference in weight. This weighs an absolute ton, whereas this one, it almost feels like a toy, but it isn't a toy. It's actually a very, very well built camera. And this is why I'm seriously thinking of moving to mirrorless. In fact, I am going to move to mirrorless. Now, Nikon do their own mirrorless system. They do the Z6 and the Z7, or the Z6 and the Z7 if you're watching in America, and they are cracking. They're absolutely amazing. A friend of mine, Mark McNeil, uses the Z system, and if you want to follow him, I'll put a link to his channel down below. So there's nothing really wrong with the Nikon Z system, and it would be a natural progression for me to move up from a DSLR to the Nikon Z system, and I could even use the lenses that I've got here as well with an adapter. But because I do more video now, you know, I do quite a lot of video now. I have another channel that's got really, really big, and video is very, very important. And unfortunately, even with this Sony here, can I show you the Sony here? The Nikon Z systems, they have an articulating screen, which is great. I was talking about it before on my camera. But what I need for video, what would be really handy if that screen flipped out. So if the screen flipped out to the side, this particular model doesn't do it. But the later version, one of the later versions of the Sony's does. So I've been seriously considering a Sony A7 Mark IV to be accurate. So it's great to have had the use of this camera and get a feel for it, because it's so much easier to use than this one. And I also want to show you the lenses as well. Now this is a 70-200 f2.8. Now look at the size of that lens. That lens it weighs almost 1.5 kilos. It weighs a ton. And I want to show you, now she also lent me a lens as well. So this is a similar lens. It's a 70-200. Again, it's a little bit slower. This one is f2.8, this one is f4. So like I said, the aperture that's inside is a little bit more closed up on this one. It lets half the amount of light in as this one. So it's a little bit slower, but I mean, look at that there. Can you see? This one weighs almost 1.5 kilos, whereas this one, I think it's around about a kilo, maybe. So it's a massive difference in weight. And I think that, do I really need the f2.8? Well, to be quite honest, being an astrophotographer, yes, it's very handy, but I have trackers, and you can always get around doing long exposures using a tracker if you haven't got a very fast lens. So that is another massive thing for the mirrorless as well. You get, well, not so much the mirrorless cameras, but just having a lenses that are maybe a little bit slower, you know, just and a lot lighter and easier to use. And also they'll fit on my dinky little tripod. I've got this little tripod here, and it's really, really good. It actually goes right down. You can put it right on the floor. You know, when you get reflections, you can put this right down like that. Look at that there, isn't it amazing? Yeah, and you can get right that reflection right on the floor. So it's going to be better for using with a little tripod as well. So this is the thing. Now I'll just show you something else as well. That's another lens I've got there. This is actually my sort of go-to astro lens. I actually had, you see this camera here, that's a 24-70 f2.8 lens. It's an absolute beast. It weighs a ton, and it's one of the Holy Trinity. Now I also had the wider version, the 14-24 f2.8, and then I had this one, and then I have the 70-200. It's what they call the Holy Trinity of Nikon glass, and they're all the gold ring as well, so they're all the top quality. Now unfortunately, I wrote off my 14-24 f2.8 quite a few years ago on Ashness Jetty up in the Lake District, and I never really replaced it. So I was after a fast lens, a wide lens that I could shoot the stars with, you know, that I could shoot the stars with and not have to use a long exposure or anything like that. I ended up getting this. It's a 20mm f1.8, and it's pretty good. I've used it for quite a lot of my photographs over the past year or two since I bought it. It's a really, really good lens. Not quite as versatile as the 14-24, but it is faster. Can you see? It's f1.8. Now that's pretty fast, and I always shoot wide open. I never stop the lens down. You can take a picture of the Milky Way with this lens, a really, really good picture of the Milky Way at 20 seconds ISO 1600 at f1.8, and that will get you a cracking picture of the Milky Way. And that's a good thing. But if I was going to get a new system, I'd need to make sure that system, I can get a lens similar to that one, or I might even go for something a bit different, but I would definitely need to have a fast wide lens for my Astro. So that's very important. So anyway, like I say, I have actually been seriously considering the Sony system, and it is very, very good. But just recently, I've been swayed a little bit by Panasonic. Now, Frank in Blackpool is actually responsible for swaying me towards Panasonic. I'll put a link to his channel down below, Frank in Blackpool. Now, I bought this camera off Frank in Blackpool. It's a Panasonic Lumix GH5. Now, this is a mirrorless camera, and I intentionally bought it for video reasons, because it's a very, very good video camera. Now, if you look here, can you see the screen, how it flips around? Look at that. Can you see what I mean? This is what I mean. The screen can flip all the way around. That is very, very important to me, because I want a camera that's got a screen, a mirrorless camera that's got a screen that'll flip all the way around. It's no good if it's got an articulated screen, because I won't be able to see myself when I'm, you know, when you're doing selfies like that there, and I'm looking at the screen. I want to have the screen. Now, you can get round it, of course, with, you can put a screen on the top, but that's just another gadget, and they're expensive, those screens as well. So I'm after a camera that has a screen that you can flip round, like this one. Now, I never really got into this camera for some reason. I never really got the hang of it, but it is a very, very good video camera, and it has excellent features, and it's a Panasonic camera that I have actually been looking at recently, that I'm getting quite into, to be honest. It's a Panasonic. It's a full frame as well, so it's got a bigger sensor than that one. It's a full frame Panasonic, and it's called the S5, and it's the Mark II version, and it's due to come out a bit later on this year, hopefully within a month or so. And it has excellent video, which will be great for my vlogging. Now, the only thing is that it's a Panasonic. It's a different system. I'm used to using the Nikon system. Can I get used to Panasonic? The autofocus is going to be different. It's also a drop down in megapixels, because this camera here is 46 megapixels, which is very, very detailed. It means you can crop a picture, you can crop right into a picture and still get lots of detail out of it. Now, the Panasonic camera that I'm looking at is only 24 megapixels. It's only about half the detail that this one can pick up. Now, I'm thinking that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because how many times do I go out and I need to capture a picture that's 46 megapixels, and I need all those megapixels? 9 times out of 10, a camera with 12 megapixels or more will take cracking pictures. If you're doing wildlife or you're shooting aeroplanes for air shows, then maybe, yes. If they're far away, or motorsport where things are miles away, the cars, that's where your megapixels, your more megapixels might come in. But I actually think that I could handle that drop in megapixels if I was to go for this Panasonic Lumix S5 II, which I'm seriously considering. I had a look at it. I had a look at the older model at Wex in Manchester the other day, and I was quite impressed at the way it handled. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. And if you keep watching, I'm hopefully going to be telling you all about, over the next month or so, I'm going to be doing a series of videos where I'm going to be talking about my camera, and I'm also going to be talking about the different lenses and why you use different lenses like that, talking about the speed of the lenses, the apertures, all that sort of thing, which are suitable for astro, and why I, you know, all the other bits as well, like L brackets, you know, all the little gadgets that make life a whole lot easier, a shutter release, remote cable shutter release like that there. So I'm going to be talking about that over the next month or so. So that's where I'm up to, and this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'm thinking of switching systems. I was almost had my heart set on the Sony, to be honest, and it is a cracking camera. It's a cracking camera for photography. It's not such a great camera for video, certainly not as much as this Panasonic I was looking at. The Panasonic is in a different league for video, and because I do so much video now, it's kind of half and half. I seriously think that I should have a good look at the Panasonic, and that's what I'm going to do. So there you go. I hope you like this video, and look out for some more videos where I'll be talking a bit more about the stuff that I use. That's what I want to try and do. I want to try and do more videos this year. I keep saying I'm going to do more videos, and then I don't, but there you go. I hope you like this video, and if you do, hit the like button, and also hit subscribe and tick the bell for notifications of new videos, and I will see you again on the next one.